Today we'll be looking at the core values of Anglicanism. And what is Anglicanism? We are talking about the basic tenets of the Christian faith in the context of the Anglican traditions, heritage, and practices. One of the things that history does, and a look back into our culture, is to get us to understand the diversity of human experience, especially cultures, ideas, and traditions that are not exactly our own, but which we borrowed from and had since reshaped our lives and view and worldview. History helps us with a better understanding of how we got to where we are now, and thus build a better understanding of the world and human behavior through time. Now, until the period referred to in history as the English Reformation period, or the Protestant Reformation in Europe, which was in the 16th century, occasioned by some long and complex historical developments in English history that centered largely around the English monarch, Henry VIII, as well as trending teachings of a Protestant movement spearheaded by a German teacher, a theologian and clergyman named Martin Luther. The Christian church worldwide was one big family, referred to generally as the Catholic Church. As a matter of fact, the word Catholic means universal. It means worldwide. And that is why when we are trying to explain our denominational difference or differences, we say, no, we are not Catholic. No, we are Catholic because the word Catholic means universal. And that's why you still find it in our creed when we say, I believe in one holy, Catholic, and apostolic church. So when those denominations that chose to give themselves those names were just borrowing from the original nomenclatures of the church. Now, you will find out that it is for this reason that what we refer to as the foundational elements or marks of the Christian church are those things embedded in that creed to enable us, in spite of which denominations we choose to reshape ourselves into, to remind us that we still belong to that original foundation, which is our root. And that is why we talk about the marks of the Christian church, which are one, holy, Catholic, and apostolic. Those elements are the determinant factors that play out. What do we mean by one? One, in that sense, refers to the fact that Christ established here on earth only one church. The fact that we now have several denominations are matters of human decisions. Oh, I want to do my own separately. This is the way I want to have my own. Those are denominational differences. Christ himself, his desire, as he told God, was that, Father, let them be one, just as you and I are one. And as a matter of fact, you will recall that when the disciples of Jesus came to him to say, Baba, come and see, they want to cheapen this thing. Oh. Some people are already also carrying out miracles in your name. He said, if it is in our name, those who are for us are not against us. We keep them. And so he debunked this idea of making the gospel look like something that is totally exclusive and must not be shared. We are not supposed to be ice block Christians. His mandate to us is that we must go out and spread it to all nations. He said from Judea to Samaria and even to the uttermost part of the world. We belong to that uttermost part of the world. Then when we talk about it being holy, it is a compulsory requirement that the church be holy. When we are talking about holy in this sense, we are not talking about sanctimonious piety. Oh, holy, holy, just do it. No, that's not the point. But we are talking about a church that is set apart, sanctified, to be set apart and with a mission that is focused on the mandate given by Jesus Christ himself. Anything anybody is doing outside that mandate, you are just on your own. We are required to be the salt and the light of the world. Then the word Catholic means universal. It's a Greek word that means universal. To be Catholic means to be for the whole of humanity. And then the word apostolic, in fact, I prefer the way it is so explained in the Yoruba translation of the liturgy. The point that is being made there, when some people get to hear apostolic church, you say, no, I'm an Anglican. No, it's not. If it is not apostolic, then you are not Anglican. Apostolic means those who follow the teachings of Christ as set out or taught by the apostles. Apostolic refers to the church's foundation and beliefs as rooted and continuing in the living tradition of the apostles of Jesus, upon whom Jesus established this church, and who further ensure that what Christ handed over to them is handed on continuously through what we refer to as apostolic succession. And that is why you find out that when we are ordaining a priest or any deacon, we will all lay hands on that person. It is not just the bishop. All the priests will come out when we are ordaining a priest. They will join their hands, even if they are 1,000 in that assembly. Wherever they are, they touch, the other person touches the other person, the other one touches the other person. And then it is a way of passing down, as it was passed down from the first apostles. Let it continue to flow, so that that mandate is one, and nobody is operating on a new system. And so, when we talk about this, then we are saying that the Anglican Church is apostolic, is universal, is Catholic, is Episcopal, it is Pentecostal, and so on and so forth. Now, in a broader sense, when we talk about Anglicanism, therefore, we are talking about what we believe. The word Anglican came from the Latin word Anglicanus, which also was derived from the word Anglicus, which means the English people. So we are talking about, because our own faith was brought to us by those members of the Church of England, which originally was also part of that universal, one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. But the Church of England, as a result of those circumstances that were brought about by the Reformation, first, in terms of the ongoing trend at that time, with what Martin Luther was spreading about the need to look at the corruption that was going on in the church and the power drunkenness that seemed to have engulfed the power structure of the church, that it was necessary to stop that idea of them looking at the Pope as being an infallible being. As a matter of fact, by the time he posted those 95 theses, inviting people to read them, listing, it was an activist of some sort, listing the various ills of the church and drawing the attention of the people to the fact that we must stop looking at the man who is sent, but looking at the man who sent. And that was when emphasis shifted from the dogmatic principles of the Catholic Church, of the Roman Catholic Church, and then led to the English Church breaking away. As a matter of fact, that was further fueled by the personal and selfish interest of King Henry VIII, who only seized the opportunity of that movement. Originally, he had been awarded with the title of Defender of the Faith, which is a title that every king or queen of England continues to bear today. As a matter of fact, when King Charles was taking his oath at that first ceremony, he was asked to confess, and that, he made declaration that he was the defender of the Christian faith. It was a title that was given by the Pope to King Henry VIII because he assisted them to quell the movements that Martin Luther's preaching had brought about. And as a matter of helping them to quell that, they gave him the title of Defender of the Faith. But when that law that was about strictness now encapsulated him, he wanted the law to be brought down to suit him, because he wanted a divorce so that he could marry another woman, because he was a Tudor king. A Tudor king are those who do not get there by right of succession, but who got there as a result of conquest of war. So he would need a male child to allow his lineage to continue. So, and unfortunately, his wife, that wife was an inherited wife, because his elder brother Arthur died shortly after their marriage and after he ascended the throne, and he had to become king, and that woman was willed to him. So when he now noticed that the woman was not giving him that male child that he wanted, he began to say, it is not the will of God that this woman should be my wife. Will of God at what time of the day? So he said, and the Pope said, no, I won't grant divorce. On account of that, he got some other people who assisted him, a number of supporters, just as it happens even today. Thomas Cranmer and Thomas Cromwell were able to assure him, and he went ahead and appointed Thomas Cranmer as the Archbishop of Canterbury, and they were now able, by the Measure Act of 1534, they were able to get the Parliament to promulgate a law to say that we do not necessarily have to follow or be under the Pope. And so they got him as the head of the monarchy in England to become the supreme head. And he continues to use that title of the Defender of the Faith. And that is why today the church and the state in the United Kingdom is one. And that is why you find out that the Archbishop of Canterbury is appointed. His appointment or his election is approved by the Queen or the King, as the case may be. And when it is time to also crown the king, it is the Archbishop of the Canterbury that will crown that king. So you will see the interrelationship. And that is why in the Anglican Church, when we have wardens, those wardens are representative of those two blocks. And it reflects in the staff they carry. One, the insignia on one is the crown, while the insignia on the other one is either the cross or the mitre, as an indication that is a collaboration between the state and the church. And so when we talk about the Anglican Church, we are simply referring also to those Western Christian tradition that developed from the practices, liturgy, and specific identity of the Church of England, or members of those churches whose origins are traceable to the national or regional ecclesiastical provinces that are in full communion with the See of Canterbury, Church of England, and those with the British monarch, the King or Queen of England, as the case may be. So you will see that historically, the two denominations, which we call Anglican and Anglican and Catholic, were one and the same children of the same parents, until that breakaway took place and came as a result of the protest. It is the reason why we are referred to as the Protestant church, the church that came as a result of the Protestantism that took place. So they now call themselves the Anglican Church, the church with its headquarters in English land. Why the residue that used to be the Universal Church, the residue body that was left and was stationed in Rome, became the Roman Catholic Church. So when we are referring to them now for purpose of identity, we refer to that church as Roman Catholic Church, because all of us belong to the Catholic Church. But they are the Catholic Church based or with its headquarters in Rome. So that's why they are Roman Catholic. All of us are Catholic. Then we might ask, what then are the major similarities or differences between us that make the major contrast between Anglicanism and Catholicism? It is very essential so that in the context of our worship, we will not see things and then feel that, what is happening? In fact, sometimes we exclaim, this is on Anglican. You need to be familiar with the tenets and basic culture of your church, so that if your children should ask questions, they will be able to find comfortable and plausible answers that will. There is nothing we do in the Anglican Church without a reason. All the practices you see, there are histories behind them. There are reasons why they are done. Even where we sit, how the church is arranged, what we call in fact, the structure, the architectural structure of the church is a design. It is usually the design of a cross. And you will see that that is why we have this long aisle, and then we have another cross. The center of that place, don't look at where we are, is an architectural modernization. You will see that in the older churches, you will find out that those side doors will be in the middle. It is a way to create that design of the cross. It's different, slightly different from the one that is here. Although in broader sense, if you look at this is actually more like the cross, because the crossbar is a bit at a higher level. So when you see that, it is for a reason. It is to represent that cross. And you will see that when the gospel was going to be read this morning by Reverend Modi, he was sitting on that side. But you will see that he came to read it here. That side of the church is where we refer to as the gospel side, because it is presumed, since the Bible told us that Jesus is sitting on the right-hand side of God, since we know that God is seated in that altar, his right-hand side will be there. And that is why you find in any church that is Anglican, that the seat of the bishop or his representative, the vicar, will always be on that side. And it is also on that side that the pulpit, where we proclaim the gospel, will be. Because the gospel is considered the central focus of our message. That is why, unlike the other readings, we stand to read the gospel. Sometimes when we have the elaborate service, the gospel is even taken to the center. That center is referred to as the nave, derived from the word navel. You know where our navel is the middle. Idodo Nidajara is the nave. That is the center of the church. It is to enable everybody gravitate their attention to the center. And you'll find out that when gospel is taken to that place, everybody is asked to face the gospel. Even when that gospel was going to be read, whoever is preaching or whoever must turn at that time and face the gospeler. In fact, during the reading of the gospel, there must be no movement. But today, familiarity breeds contempt. We have watered down a number of those things. We even move around, we shake hands, we greet while the gospel is going on. That is the highest point of the service. And that is why in a regular service, you do not go into the gospel without taking what we call the gradual hymn. What do we call the gradual? It means we are gradually moving towards the climax of this service. That is when the word of God, the message of Christ is declared. So you then ask, what then are the differences between us that mark this major contrast between Anglicanism and Catholicism? Although they both initially originated from a common root and are bound by those tenets embedded in our creeds, that's why we have the creeds. Those creeds are the same, except that you now find that some of the new churches that came, independent churches, in an attempt to show that they were different, they can insert their own different things. But go to Celestial Church, go to Cherubim and Seraphim, it's that same creed they will read. Although when they get to Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, they would rather say, I believe in the Celestial Church. What is the word celestial? What does it mean? Celestial means heavenly. Which church is on earth? which just deals with the earth. We are all heavenly, so we are celestial. So, that's also why we have those creeds. The creeds were more or less like memoranda of understanding, common agreements to which all the churches had to say before we start bringing all sorts of teachings. These are the things that can be shaken. And that's why we have the Apostles' Creed, we have the Nicene Creed, which is deeper and more detailed in terms of doctrinal differences. And then we have a third one, which we also read occasionally, which is the Athanasian Creed. That's a much longer and elaborate analysis of our union. And then you will also see that we have a little difference in our structures, in our leadership structure and everything. While by the original teachings of the Catholic Church, the Pope was more or less second to none. In fact, he was regarded as being infallible. Whatever he says, even though he was a human being. And so when corruption set in and they started behaving truly as man, at that point, they could not be challenged. As a matter of fact, one of the major points that Martin Luther was fighting against was the issue of the sale of indulgences. What were indulgences? In the Roman Catholic Church, it is customary, or in the Old Catholic Church, that you go and confess your sin to the Reverend Father a day before so that you can be certified clean to be able to attend the Mass on Sunday. So yesterday you should have gone to do those rites and be certified to be free. So when you have confessed your sin, he pronounces the absolution, which we do here. May the Almighty and merciful Lord forgive you your sins, give you time for amendment of life and the grace and comfort of the Holy Spirit. But those things were not just pronounced like that. Then they now started selling that. So, okay, although this sin is too much, the way I see you, I can see you on the way to hell. But if you monetize it, we can still pray to God for you. And those things got abused. Those were the things Martin Luther was saying, we can't be doing this. We got it free, we should give it free. Now said, this man, you are talking too much. Don't talk like that to the authorities. Those were the challenges of the time. And so, by the structure of the Anglican Church, that became changed. And that is why the Archbishop of Canterbury, in our own setting, is different. He's merely a primus inter pares. He's just first among equals. He is not regarded as a totalitarian. If he gives orders, and those orders are considered by the others as not in line or in sync with the Bible, they have a right to say, sorry, we are not going that way. You will notice that the Church of Nigeria, Anglican Communion, had not attended the Lambeth Conference for some years. The Lambeth Conference is usually called every 10 years by the reigning Archbishop of Canterbury, and he presides over that. But the very moment we had that difference over the issue of gay and the number of same-sex marriage and the number of other seemingly controversial matters, what the Church of Nigeria demanded was that show us where in the Bible you are permitted. Don't just say, oh, this is modern life, and let us not be too hard on people. Tell us where the scriptures say anything we cannot find in the Bible, forget it. And that was what led to us saying, until we resolve that, keep that meeting. We can exist without it. But in place of that, we still want to gather and fellowship as churches who do not share that view. And that was what led to the institution of GAFCON, which was held in Jerusalem, and where they made the Jerusalem Declaration. So you will see that in terms of governance, there is a lot more flexibility, liberality in the Anglican Church. But interestingly, that liberal nature is sometimes taken too much for granted and even sometimes attempted to be abused But that is why the laws, the canons of our church are so hard against misbehavior. You will find there that, as a matter of fact, around the 1990s, only the discipline of the clergy was enshrined in the Constitution of the Church of Nigeria. Shortly after that, in fact, during the administration of late Archbishop Adetilue, the Constitution was amended to include the discipline of the laity as well. And you know that that also existed in the old Catholic Church. The height of it is excommunication. If you do something that is considered too antisocial, you can be excommunicated. You'll be taken out of the community. You are banished from fellowshipping with us. And that ensures that that central command system by the Pope was amended. And we now have a much liberal structure. And you will see that also enshrined even at parish level in the way we govern our vestry meetings, committees, full participation. It's also reflected in the deregulation of our liturgy. And that's why you find that in the new liturgy, you see us doing procession of elements. That procession of elements is to ensure lay participation in that service, so that everything that may create superstition or unnecessary, mysterious, anything shrouded in mystery, that may give the younger generation a feeling that, what is it they are doing there? Must be removed. So that we lay everything bare, so that people can worship in the beauty of holiness and with the confidence of heart that nothing is hidden. As a matter of fact, but for a reason of time, I will save time for that, but this was not the way our altars used to be before. As a matter of fact, when Holy Communion was going to be celebrated many years back, windows would be closed. Those who are yet to be confirmed will be asked to leave. Say, at this point, as we sing this hymn, those who are not yet confirmed should leave. Children began to ask questions. What is it they are doing there? And they said they are sharing the body and blood. Is this thing not occultic? Part of what the Anglican Church did was to deregulate that problem that we inherited from the one holy Catholic Church, to say, let's lay everything bare. Although in our doctrinal practice, we also differ. The Roman Catholic Church still holds on to the fact, which is the doctrine of transubstantiation. They believe that the wine and blood that we take is the original blood and body. If any of the children hear that, they say, Daddy, please, I won't be able to attend this your cultic church where they are sharing blood. The Anglicans believe in consubstantiation. Our own belief is that those things are mere symbols representing the body. After all, do we eat the body? He gave bread. Do we even use the unleavened bread? We use it only on Monday, Thursday. What we use mostly are wafers. They are just representational symbols. And that is why when we have the time, we will give another teaching on the Holy Communion, so that we understand that those elements, the moment they are consecrated, they have moved away from the level of ordinariness into something else. And that is why you find that when the Holy Communion is over, the unfinished elements are kept on the gospel side, and the candle is allowed to continue to glow. It's a sign that what is there is live, and it's not something anybody. So it's not something 116. As soon as we finish, we just go there and touch it. Only a priest can lift those things from where they are. But again, familiarity breeds contempt. Today, we don't lay so much emphasis on this thing. We even have meetings. People will eat inside the church. They have so trivialized it. Nothing is too serious. It's like just say, no be God. He's our Father now. This is wahala too much self. The wahala must be too much. He says, if you must worship me, it must be in the beauty of holiness. And you will see that that's why we say we believed in one holy, a church set apart. Something that will take away from the profane. Something we will not allow banality to rubbish. In all our doings, in our speech, in our interaction with others, we are required, it is a bounden duty, that we maintain this holiness. And he makes it clear, he said, be ye holy, just as your Father in heaven is what? Is holy. So he knows it's attainable. If it's something that is difficult to attain, he will not set those rules. So in matters of faith, doctrine, and order, we differ in a number. Another area where we differ is the area of the cross and the crucifix. There is a difference between the cross and the crucifix. What is this difference? When you see a cross on which you still have the image of Jesus nailed to the cross, that is not a cross. That is a crucifix. The one on which the image is not there, like the one you will see us carrying, is a cross. In the Anglican Church, we do not carry crucifix. In the Roman Catholic Church, they carry the crucifix. What is the reason? The simple reason is that the Anglican Church believes, after so many years of study, that if we had said in the creed that he died and was what? Buried, then he cannot still, and then after the third day, what happened? He resurrected. If he had resurrected, and which is actually the plank, the fundamental reason why Christianity exists. Because if Jesus had not resurrected, there would have been no Christianity. And so if he has resurrected, you will see the difference in the two. Maintain that picture. You will see that on one there is the image, on the other, the one to which we subscribe is the one that shows and tells the world that our own Jesus is living because he has left that cross and is now reigning in heaven. Did I hear you say amen? Also in practice, Catholic priests are compelled to take a vow of celibacy, which is to say they must neither marry nor father children of their own. And the same holds true even for monks and nuns, reverend sisters, and all those who take a vow to be in those orders. But when you see that in reality, the Anglican Church was more realistic. When you look at some of the possible practices, some of the possible debasement, as human beings, as a matter of fact, there was one publication in Malawi. There was a newspaper publication where we saw, you can read it, diocesan priests impregnate 30 nuns. I'm just trying to draw attention to that. That is the human angle of our human weakness. Why set a law that will make you wrong God and then set you against him? Give everybody the opportunity. Paul advised. He said, I'm not saying you must do what I am doing. I have chosen not to marry. But it is not a standard. If you know that your capacity cannot take you through, marry. As a matter of fact, even priests in the Anglican Church, apart from the fact that you have the liberty to marry, if there is a problem with that marriage, maybe as a result of death or a result of other issues that are seemingly irreconcilable, dispensations are given to them to remarry in order to avoid a glide into sin. Because if he has to perform his sacerdotal duties, and sometimes he needs the emotional support of the home. When that is missing, he might now want to bring in generators to stand by until NEPA returns. And that can lead to sin. Therefore, rather than live on generator, place everybody on the national grid. That is. So there are many more, but time will not permit us to go into all the details. But we will see in all this that Anglicanism, by its structure, its theology, and forms of worship, is a distinct Christian tradition, representing a middle ground, like what IBB used to call a little to the left and a little to the right. So that rather than being extremely tenacious, you say, no, you can't do that. Why do you want them to be pushed into sin? Lower it. That is not to say you are lowering the standards. You are simply giving some flexibility to the rules. That was one of the reasons why Jesus himself, when he returned, he noticed that rather than follow and obey the rules, the laws that God had given, the Israelites were only interested in the legalism of those laws. No, we cannot do that. This you must do. As a matter of fact, by the details of what they started doing in terms of bylaws, the laws went from 10 commandments to over 600 laws. It was no longer possible to keep all of them. When they got tired of keeping them, they now began to put them in leather pouches. They would tie them. That is what they call in Yoruba tira, that people put. It is those laws that are there. And so to say, some of them, they will tie it around their wrists, a way of reminding them. But that is like a student who, rather than study for examination, went to put the entire textbook under his pillow to say, God, just let it sink. It won't even enter. So much as to say it's sinking anywhere. And so, when Jesus came, he said, look, you are deceiving yourself. You are deceiving yourself. Rather than do that, he says, you have been told this and this and this, but I tell you, this is how it should go. I do not have all the time. I will have to make it brief because we have a very... So in all this, what is the point we are making? You will see that in the Anglican Church, we have two traditions. And a number of times you are worried as to saying, where do we really belong? We have what we call the low church and the high church. When we talk about low church, however, we are not talking about a church with low quality. We are simply saying it's a low-profile church. And that is informed by the fact that we as a nation, our Christianity came to us through a sect, the Church Missionary Society, that belonged to the low church tradition. And that is why you find out that in low church, there are no such things as chasuble, stoles. The simple thing they wear is what we call the regular habit. You just have, just as that man is dressed, that is the regular habit. And then, I'm not too sure we can manage this, but let me just conclude. Quite tough. But I will just say that unique to Anglicanism, however, is the Book of Common Prayer. And that is that very unique book that provides a framework for all our services. In fact, at 9 today, you will see that we'll be celebrating Matins. But in that Matins, at some services, we will sing introit. At some, we will not. Today, in some services, we'll even have playlets in the course of the service. That shows you how flexible, how easily adaptable that Book of Common Prayer is. And that is why it's not necessary for any young person to say, I'm leaving the church, they are too hard. Whichever way, provided you do not leave the path of the Bible, you want to worship, you are allowed. There is no room for licentiousness and banality, but there is room for experimentation and to allow everybody in the simple context by which they can do that to be able to do what they do. Let me just conclude and say, Christianity is a living religion with a faith that is actively seeking understanding of God, the world He has created, and how to get the two to relate harmoniously. As members of this great communion and holy family, we must always be seen as being very desirous by all intents and purposes to understand and to identify with the church to which we belong. Its heritage, its constitution, its liturgy, and its government. So that we do not act in ignorance. A number of times, many of the things we do are done out of ignorance. It's simply because we do not know. If we understand the tenets of our church, we will see that if you follow the rules, you will eat the fruit of the land. Beloved people of God, co-laborers in God's vineyard, I thank you for your attention and wish you the very best in your life's Christian journey. In the name of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit.